Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your kind invitation. It is a pleasure to address you today, albeit remotely. I was invited today to talk about the dark patterns that you all know as practices to manipulate behavior for the gain of the designer. As I have said repeatedly in the past, while on the one hand the GDPR has hugely contributed to the development of privacy and data protection legal framework closer to today's needs, it creates a high standard which the majority of countries around the world is looking at. It, on the other hand, is equally true that people's rights and freedoms are under unprecedented strains every day when they use their devices. GDPR and the overall data protection framework need to be complemented with a wider integrated approach which dialogues with IT tools and application designers, challenges the prevalent, often toxic business model and consider how to rediscuss it, and which responds to the big ethical question raised by the prevalent business practices. So this integrated approach should take other areas of law on board. Dark patterns specifically raise concerns for consumer protection as well. Let me say something with regard to design and transparency on how to raise awareness. Privacy by design and privacy by default principles are fundamental components of the GDPR. These obligations in effect require hardware and software processing personal information to be designed and built in a way that complies with the GDPR and to offer a predefined highest level of protection. In particular, the data protection by design principle doesn't require to dictate a specific procedure, but rather focuses on the outcome. It requires controllers to design products which effectively protect personal information. Dark patterns are a way for companies to circumvent this principle by ruthlessly nudging consumers into consenting, for example, to new contractual terms, or even manipulate their attention. A study of the Norwegian Consumers Council published last year reveals and compares the way in which big companies pursue the use of dark patterns. The user-centered design, while aiming at creating an interface based on what the users are likely to look for, tries to predict how to accommodate their wants and needs most effectively. And these practices have a strong potential for frustrating the role of meaningful consent under data protection law, which in order to operate as a legal basis must be, as you know, informed and freely given for real. In case of sensitive data, it must also be explicit. And big data is gathering a huge amount of very sensitive data as we speak. Being aware of these techniques is crucial to avoid them, to regain full control of our online activity and to get more transparency while browsing. The rights to access and to portability of data, which require organizations to make personal data easily accessible and legible to the users who wishes to request it, play an important role. So I am worried that dark patterns become a conventional way of bypassing people's privacy choices. And I'm also worried because there is only a small gap between nudging and carelessly taking advantage of natural human behaviors. Let me conclude by making few comments on the online manipulation of freedom and choice to speak about ethics and trust. I would start by saying that the average attention span for humans has dropped from 12 seconds to just 8 seconds in the last century, probably because we are forced to multitask, but not only. So companies' attitude of manipulating consumers into sharing personal data makes profit out of those 8 seconds in a way which I consider imbalanced. And this stands in contrast to the fundamental freedom of choice. Such practices contribute to a digital ecosystem that changes individuals from, let me say, service recipients to servants of the data industry. So when individuals are not treated as persons but only as mere aggregates of data, they are not fully respected in their dignity. Putting forward such an image of humanity is not only questioning our most fundamental social values, but also lessens people's trust in digital services. This is not in line with our European values, and it is not in line, in particular, with the GDPR. GDPR, in fact, aims at exactly at holding companies accountable, promoting a human-centric approach, and ultimately reinvigorating trust. So I'm glad that today's discussion will shed some further light on the use of dark patterns. Someone told me recently that video messages tend to be boring after a few minutes, so let me now leave you into an exciting day ahead. I would like to thank you once again for your invitation, for your attention, and wish you all the best for a fruitful and inspiring roundtable.